Welcome, everybody, to the Armchair Racers podcast. I'm your host, Kenny Kibbe, along with my co host, Austin Belke. Kind of an interesting week this week. We've had some special races on the iRacing side and supposed to have some special races in the real racing side, but we'll get to that later. Um, we'll hop right into it. First, on the real racing news discussion. Um, Atlanta obviously was after our podcast on Sunday. And Kyle Larson absolutely dominated the event. Led 269 of the 325 laps, but didn't win. And I think that's like the fourth or fifth time or something in his career that he's led um, like over 200 laps in a race, and like every time he's done that, he hasn't won. And became evident again. He just looked like he wasn't saving his tires well enough in the last run. I think he pushed it too hard trying to stay in front of Blaney, and Ryan Blaney ran him down and took the win, which I really wanted Kyle Larson to win, but Blaney, if a Ford's going to win, Blaney's a good one to win. I really like Blaney, and keeps that streak alive of different winners to start the season. I think we're up to, what, six now? Six or seven? Um,
Yeah, I think it's six.
yeah, so it was unfortunate on Larson's end, but it was a good race. Long green flag runs, not many cautions. There was some strategy involved. What do you think?
I thought it was a good race. It sucked not seeing Kyle Larson win, but yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, he won stage one and two. It's like the third or fourth race he's done that, and then not won the race. And then Ryan Blaney keeps one of his streaks alive of taking the lead to win the race in the last like 10 laps. I think he's done that in every single time he's won.
Yeah, he has, and that's kind of interesting. I think. Well, he won. Well, he won at the Roval when Truex and Johnson spun out, so that was probably like the only. That was obviously the last lap. And then he won at Talladega at least once. Did he win at Talladega twice?
I think he's won there twice.
So that was like last lap kind of deal. Then he got this win, and then Pocono was
I think he
like a.
passed Kyle Busch at Pocono and then had to run away from Harvick or stay ahead of Harvick at the end.
Yeah, and that was like on a final restart. So, yeah, he's kind of turning into the new closer, whereas Harvick not really a closer anymore, more so just the dominator when he is out there and wins.
Yeah, in seasons where he's doing well.
Yes. Um, we'll move on. So this week, NASCAR, the Truck Series and the Cup Series are at Bristol with dirt on it, and but they're having to deal with rain, which is really unfortunate because it was shaping up to be an interesting race, and obviously they will eventually run it, but the rain is really causing this to be a mess, and so the trucks actually, so the way the format is that there's no actual like hot lap qualifying. There's like a random draw to grid up these heat races, and based on how well you finish plus any passing points, so any positions you gain, kind of determines the starting lineups, and also depends on whether or not they make the race for some of the lower teams. And so it had been raining, um, like quite a bit of the day on Saturday, and we were supposed to have the truck heats and the cup heats, and then the truck race. And they were able to get some trucks out there to start a heat race, but it was a lot of mud, and as soon as they started going, the tires would just fling up mud, and the visibility became just impossible. So they were only able to run a couple laps, and then they had to pull in, and then they had to call it because it rained some more. And I know it's raining right now, and James is in our chat, says it's a lake. It'll be a few days before they race.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's like I was telling Austin before the show. It's supposed to rain until like at least 4 to 5 p.m. local time today. So yeah, I don't see them really having the track being in a good condition to race even today. I haven't looked at what the weather. I think the weather Monday is supposed to be nice, but It's gonna take forever.
Well, Mike Joy was saying on I think Wednesday or maybe even Friday, he was saying like, folks, if rain is in the forecast, like this track is made to deal with a certain amount of rain, like so many cubic feet per minute or inches of rain per hour or something. It was okay to deal with that because it goes away, but they're still slinging mud, and I mean, like when there's no visibility, like the entire windshield is just brown from dirt, like you can't see anything.
Yeah, I mean the surface might have been usable for the cars and might have even been better for wear, but when you can't see, you can't see. I mean that's you just can't race on that, especially when it was that quick, 2 laps. I mean, it was like
I mean,
immediate.
they're showing onboards of like Kevin Harvick. Someone had the helmet cam on, and it was like within the first lap they couldn't see anything.
Yeah, so we can't have that. So I don't know. It's gonna be a one big mess. I don't know. It's gonna look like Woodstock when people were rolling around in mud and making a big old mess. So I not a whole lot to talk about with that then, but we do. I did go ahead and make my fantasy picks, and I will pull up my screen. Um, I basically went all in on the favorites. I got Bowman, Dillon, Larson, Bell, Stenhouse, and Reddick in the garage. Um, Stenhouse and Dillon I haven't used yet this year, so I figured I could try them out. Bonus picks I picked Dillon as the winner, but Larson as the top Chevrolet, Chase Briscoe top Ford, Kyle Busch top Toyota, winning manufacturer Chevy, and Richard Childress Racing winning team. I liked what I saw from Reddick the other day, and I think Austin Dillon's been pretty smart about things so far this weekend. So I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of winging it. Did you end up making your picks?
I did, yeah, just what we were talking about the podcast this morning. So I picked Bell, Stenhouse, Austin Dillon, DeBenedetto, Suarez, and Friesen. Hopefully Stuart Friesen can make the race. I don't know if he's guaranteed a spot, but I thought he was. And then for the bonus picks, I have Larson as the race winner in the top Chevrolet. McDowell for the Ford. He seemed pretty quick. I couldn't really tell who I wanted to pick for Ford, so I just went with him because why not? Christopher Bell, and then as always Chevy, and then I picked Hendrick Motorsports. But I feel like RCR is a pretty good pick though.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that Friesen is locked in too. I think the Spire car does have a charter. So yeah, he'll be an interesting pick.
I just feel like there's free points, and I'm never going to use him again because this will be the only race he runs. So
Right.
might as well get those.
Or you could even like throw him in the garage if you're skeptic of him.
Yeah, I mean he's in the garage now, but like if he's doing pretty like half decent, just throw him in.
Right. And it's like we were talking about it earlier too, that it's kind of funny that um, the Cup guys trying to do this truck race for practice, and really they've only been able to practice by running practice laps, and now they're going to have to stay later to, or well, I guess depends on how it fills out if they don't
I
end up
mean,
racing
yeah, when
today.
they run, like the trucks could easily end up going before the Cup Series, but I feel like because the Cup Series, like if they run it tonight, they're doing the Cup Series.
Right. But if they run tomorrow, who knows? Who knows what they'll do?
Well, they could have the upper hand by getting to run the trucks, and they could might be better, but we'll see.
Sorry, I had to pause. Thought I had a sneeze coming on, but it was just a pump fake. So, um, but yeah, and there's perfect timing on James's part in the chat. He says, "Good news is the F1 race comes on in 30 minutes," and we were actually going to cover that. Austin was going to preview the F1 race slash season.
Yeah, real excited. There's a lot of cool stuff going on this year. Some new teams, some new faces in different places. I guess we'll start off with I mean, they're at Bahrain this year. It's the new first race. They should have been in Australia a couple weeks ago, but due to COVID, they did not go to Australia. They're at Bahrain instead. Bahrain is usually a pretty good race. If anybody doesn't know, that's where they were for 2 weeks in a row last year. That's where Grosjean had that big fireball crash, and then they ran the outer oval looking thing. That's the race George Russell subbed for Lewis Hamilton. I know Kenny, Chris, and I watched that. That was a pretty good race. Um, Max Verstappen has won every practice and has taken the pole for today's race. So I expect to see a lot of good speed out of him. I'm not sure if the Mercedes have given it their all yet. Usually by now they have. So I must assume that Red Bull has engineered a better car, if not in general, only for Max Verstappen, because Sergio Perez was knocked out in Q2, I think. Um, so that was unfortunate. Some other teams I've got my eye on are Aston Martin. Um, they used to be like the Racing Point or whatever, just the paint cars. Um, now they're British Racing Green with Lance Stroll and Seb Vettel. Unfortunately, Vettel got knocked out in Q3, so I don't know what that's going on. But I am a big Vettel fan, so hopefully he does well. I know a lot of people are. Um, we'll see how that goes. Ferrari are on the soft tires to start off the race, so interested to see how that plays out for him.
Any other like old faces in new places or new faces? I know like Fernando Alonso's back.
Yeah, Alonso's back in the Alpine cars. He actually, I think he made it all the way into like Q1 or something, so he's still pretty quick. Apparently, he's still got it. I was, a fan of seeing him back, but I wasn't sure if he'd still have all the talent he left with. It looks like he does, though. So yeah, he's back. Renault turned into Alpine Racing, so it's Fernando and Esteban Ocon, and then Ferrari. Um, Obviously, we talked about Vettel being at Aston Martin, so um, Sainz is now with Ferrari, which opened up a spot at McLaren, and that was filled by Daniel Ricciardo. You guys might or might not know that Haas canned both their drivers last year, so now they have Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin. Um, I don't expect to see much out of the two of them because Haas sucks, but for sure not Mazepin because he doesn't seem very good, and he's spun out a lot. Even in qualifying, he spun out.
Well,
So
he's those Haas drivers are starting 18th and 19th on the 20 car field. So,
yes, yeah,
and I see this name I don't remember seeing, Sonoda for AlphaTauri. Is he
yes,
a new guy?
yeah. So AlphaTauri canned Daniel Kvyat, and they hired this short little Bolka guy.
Nice. So, is there any other like rookies? Is he the only rookie?
Well, he is a rookie, and then the other two are
Ah,
Schumacher and
Schumacher.
Mazepin.
Okay. I feel like Sonoda actually qualified P13, so
No, he's fast, and I mean Pierre Gasly qualified in the top 10. I forget
fifth.
where exactly, but he
He's
was doing
fifth.
pretty well.
So, race expectations. What do you think? You,
Uh, I think instead of the Hambot Ver we had last year, it might be a Ver Hambot, but we'll see.
for
I
him,
don't
nice.
expect Mercedes to fall off the podium, and I don't really expect for Verstappen to not win the race, given the fact he's so much faster than the two Mercedes. But we'll see.
Guess we will. It is slightly encouraging to see Ferrari at least have a Ferrari P4. I don't know how they qualified last year, but I know they raced terribly.
Terrible, just terrible every time.
So that's got to be a little bit encouraging, right? Fourth and eighth.
Yeah, it's nice to see the red cars up there. It'd be cool to see, like the top 10, like anyone in the top 10 could have a shot at the win or the podium,
Right.
but unfortunately it seems like it's still just Red Bull and Mercedes. Hopefully Sergio Perez can be as fast as Verstappen. I assume he's just trying to get used to the car, because of course Max Verstappen had the entirety of last year to get used to this car. So we're just hoping Perez can get up there and it can actually be again another four-horse fight for the win. It'd be cool to see, like McLaren or someone else get up there and duke it out with them too.
For sure. So I may go back and watch some of those. I've never really been a huge F1 fan, and I think it's because of the lack of parity. I appreciate the cars and the tracks and everything. There's a lot of tracks that are shown on F1 that I would normally not get to see. But the lack of parity is probably what's driven me away over the years. So, but I'll watch an occasional race and um, maybe I'll tune in for a bit of this. Um, Anyways, though, we'll move on to the iRacing side of things. NIS, which Godspeed to Matt, who is running it right now. NIS Open at Bristol, Bristol Dirt. He's gonna need some good luck. Um, I actually ended up running it twice. I normally don't. I normally do one and done for an IS fixed, but I felt like we were kind of robbed of a good finish. And it was kind of an opportunity to learn more to run it a second time. We come in second place in points and in Division 2. And we got into Split 1 on Wednesday night, and we qualified 12th. And we had all these like pro drivers in there, which the strength of field was so mixed. The strength of field was only 2762, but yet the number one driver had a 7200 I rating. That was Garrett Maines. We also had like Matt Busa was in there. He's a Coke Pro. Ryan Doucette, Caden Rush was in there. A lot of really fast drivers, but then all the way down at the bottom, like Ryan Kuhn, he's a fast pavement guy, but and Tyler Shell, who's actually a dirt pro, was in there. He actually disconnected early. Um, but all these like mix of talent was in there, and it was just a complete wreck fest. 11 cautions, um, and we got basically. I went into the corner a little. I know I felt the car pushing. I was underneath a guy, so I lit the throttle up to try to whip the car sideways. And when I did that, my back end came around too hard, and it hooked on the guy on my outside, and it hooked me straight back up into him and into the outside wall. And so that really it gave me a meatball flag for like I don't know 6 7 minutes or something, 8 minutes. So I came out and limped around for a while, gained a few spots, but we ended up 24th in that one. So then I ended up running it Thursday night, and this time we were in second split, but still same story. Big gap, or well, it was less of a gap in I ratings this time. However, we still had some iRacing pros in there, like Blake Reynolds was in there, Daniel Falkham, David Schildhaus, some like big names were in here, along with some of the guys I normally race with. But this time again, we qualified 12th again, and we're we just had like a slow, painful death this time. We just like we go up to the top, and guys in front of me would hit the wall, so I'd have to check up, and I'd lose spots, or I wouldn't be able to check up, and I'd hit them, and got spun out a few times, and then finally at the very end, like we had a destroyed race car, but we were able to keep going in the top 10. We were just outside the top 10 with like, I don't know, 10, 15 laps to go. And then we got spun and just clobbered. And I finally gave me a meatball flag and had to basically end our race. So we ended up 9 laps down. But we did finish 18th, so we improved our finishing spot from 24th to 18th. And we'll look real quick at the standings. I'm curious to see, since now the Saturday race is over, where we got. But it was a pretty bad weekend. Like the race is fun. Like racing on Bristol dirt is fun, but it's not when you got um, just a bunch of idiots. Look at that. We are second place still in the points for Division 2, and just about everybody up there except for like the 13th. Some guys in the teen places have not run yet, but so that's encouraging. Did you actually run any laps at Bristol Dirt, Austin?
No.
Well, you're lucky. It's fun by yourself. It sucks with people. Anyways, so we're still in a good spot there going next week. Next week, I believe, is well, next week is off, but then I thought that Martinsville is the next race, so that'll be interesting. Anyways, Austin, you want to give a summary of the first ever race for Squibbles Autosport?
Ah, yes. What a day, what a night, what a time to be alive. So we went out, I qualified. I probably should have practiced. I let Kenny get all the practice time in the car because the downforce setup was a lot different compared to what we'd raced at Daytona. So you could really afford to chuck the car into the corners because of the high amount of downforce. Obviously, that means the top speeds aren't as high, but what are you going to do? So I
So,
let Kenny do all the practice time. Probably should have practiced because I went out and I just laid down a decent qualifying lap. We only had one lap to qualify, which seemed kind of dumb. I prefer like a two lap. That way you can kind of get a feel for the car, and just put down a banker lap the first time out, and then the second lap you can really go for it if you want. But we only had the one lap. I put down like a 37, which is fucking terrible.
real
Don't know why I was
quick,
that slow, but I just didn't want to push the car and spin out or something because we only had the one lap, but I really felt like it was a second faster than that.
real quick. This is the NEP Endurance Series, first race for that league, and it was at Daytona. So it's fixed setups, more experienced drivers in the LMP2s, less experienced drivers in the GTEs. So it's two classes. There was like 6, 7 cars in our class, or um, so I just wanted to preview it real quick before people get
Yep, there were probably
confused.
about 10, maybe 12 cars in the GT LM field. But anyways, so we qualified, I think, sixth. Matt and Frank either didn't qualify at all or got an incident on their only qualifying laps. They had to start out back. Luckily, the GTLM field let them by. Um, so going into the first turn, they were pretty much on our butt already. Um, Going into the kink, Tim got loose, I think, and went wide, and then I was going to pass him on the inside, but at that exact moment, the power of and speed of Xfinity Internet decided my upload speed should go through the floor, and so Tim didn't know I was to his inside. I knew he was to my outside, so I went to the inside on the kink, and he just hit me off the track, spun out. I didn't hit anything. But still unfortunate being like dead last because I let every single GTLM car by before I could spin turn it in the grass and get going again. But not Tim's fault because he didn't know I was there. It's just Xfinity. So thanks to them, got back going. Tim actually must have spun out in the bus stop because we passed him. So that was one position, past all the GTLM cars. And this whole time, Kenny is telling me we're the fastest car on the track. Um, and on my relative, I could see I was catching up to the rest of the LMP2 field. And sometimes I was gapping Tim or just staying even with them. So that was nice to know that we were at least getting somewhere, but we had a lot of ground to make up. So I caught the rest of the field up, started passing some cars, and then I caught up to Ben and I think Corey Casagrande. And Ben and Corey had been fighting for a while. Corey was not as experienced in these cars, so it kind of seemed like he was holding people up, especially in the bus stop. He didn't know what limits you could push, and that's pretty much our bread and butter is that bus stop chicane, knowing how much we can cut it. So I caught up to them, and Ben caught Corey. He went high, and I had the big suck because I had two cars in front of me, creating that big old pocket of air. I passed him on the apron, and that is why you see a clip of me taking him 3 wide, pass on below the yellow line. And as I come up, I say the now infamous line, "Eat shit and die young, motherfuckers." And yeah, so that was a good time. We
That was
kept fighting. I think
fantastic.
the first two or three cars pit, and then I passed, I think, Dale Glessner for third. And then the rule, the old rule, it's an old rule now, but back then it was, the real rule. A random car in the GTLM field could choose to throw a full course yellow. So they threw the caution just as we had gone out into the lead. And I thought this killed us because it came out the exact lap that we were going to need to come into the pits to get fuel. Otherwise, we were going to run out. Luckily, we could make it 2 laps on that single tank, the single like gallon of fuel or whatever. Came in, went into the pits, changed drivers, and then Kenny went out on just full attack mode. And then I'll let Kenny talk about the rest of the race.
Yeah, so we came out and we were all like, there was a group of us in our Discord on various teams, kind of talking about what they were doing and whatnot, because it's just a for fun thing. And some guys were debating, okay, like, should we change drivers, should we not? And I thought the right move from the beginning was to change drivers, and see maybe if we don't have to pit again because of how long this caution was taking. Um, See, the other guys thought, okay, you're gonna have to pit anyways. We'll keep our driver in, and then we'll pit, and then we'll be good until the end, or something like that. I don't know. So some of the guys had pitted already. We had not, but then we did under the caution. I ended up, I don't know where I was, like second or third or something,
We were fourth off
fourth.
the caution.
And Zane and Corey got leapfrogged us, got up into the front, and on the restart going into turn one, Zane clips the inside grass and spins him right around right in front of everybody. And I don't know if any GT cars hit him, but all of us LMP cars got around him somehow, and it was kind of scary. But everybody was pretty orderly about it. So then we were running down, and oh yeah, because that's right, because yeah,
They
we ended
got
up third.
hit. Yeah,
We ended
so
up third, and then what was it? Ryan. It was Dale Glessner's partner, Ryan something. He was charging after John Peters, who was John and Evan Bollier, their team. And into the first horseshoe, they had contact and they spun, and that got us into the lead. And so we were kind of running away, but then we were thinking, oh, okay, we're gonna try to save fuel and maybe try to make it to the end. And we had Tim Shinowski right behind us, and I let him go, and then I was trying to draft off him as much as I could, but then Tim let me go. And then eventually got to the point where we were gonna have to pit no matter what. So I saved what I could, but then eventually I just kind of went full attack mode. And John Peters was kind of like lurking. He wasn't really in contention, but he was a few seconds back. And we ended up pitting, topped off on fuel, and then I had to just go for it. But we got out to the lead because everybody had to pit, and it was a little bit nerve-wracking because I didn't really know when the last lap was going to come in, and luckily it came when it did because we well, that was it. That was our last full lap of fuel that we had, and we made it. And it looked like John and Evan's car had some extra fuel in it, and that was kind of a difference maker as far as our pit stop went. But I was pretty encouraged. I think we had the speed. We had just as good a speed as everybody else out there. And yeah, so Squibbles Autosport is 1 for 1 and pulled out the victory in the NEP Endurance Series. So I'm pretty happy about that.
I was pretty proud of us. I figured we didn't have a prayer of winning after we got taken out in the first lap, and even when the caution came out, I thought we were still screwed. So very surprised by that. It was nice to have the speed, and yeah, that pit strategy worked to perfection.
Yeah, so that the first race was Daytona. Isn't the next race at Sebring?
Yeah, the next race is Sebring. It'll be sometime in April. I think like the middle. We'll see.
Yeah, it's basically one race per month because racing season for a lot of those guys is getting started, so they're not going to have as much time to do iRacing. Um, Now, these first two tracks, we have a lot of familiarity with them, but after that, we go to places like Mid Ohio, Detroit Belle Isle, Lime Rock, some really weird tracks for these LMP cars. That's where the men are going to get separated from the boys, I think, because everybody's got some familiarity with these first two tracks, but the other ones are going to be really tricky.
Yeah, Mid Ohio especially. There's a lot of elevation changes, and I've driven an Indy car around there a lot, and that is like you really have to be careful on the throttle because when you come over some of these hills, the back end just wants to step out.
And I did want to give a quick shout out to the Gambler Motorsports crew because they ran. They're kind of affiliate with our Western PA group, and John Hine and Steven Spees. They ended up second in their class. They're in the GTE cars, just running to see if they can learn. Um, but they actually led quite a bit in their class, and they ended up just losing out to the 229 Autosport car, which Brent Roy and Wyatt Alexander. They're probably going to be the toughest competition in the GTE class. So it was a nice battle between those two. Um, so it was good for them to get a good result. Hopefully they'll be able to make every race. But yeah, next one's at Sebring. By the way, too, Team Uninstall the Game had the fastest lap time of the day. JR on lap 52 got a 134.318. So even they just didn't have good circumstances fall their way. That was that was a couple tenths faster than my fastest lap. But again,
Yeah,
we were
had
kind of
they
running.
changed drivers when we did, they probably would have been fighting with us for the win.
Yeah, it would have been pretty intense. Another one of those classic JR battles that I always seem to find myself in. But anyways, so that was a nice. That was probably the best moment of the week as far as any league racing goes for me, anyways. But I didn't really
Yeah,
run a
that
whole
was
lot
awesome to see Team Squibble's Autosport on the top.
for sure. Did you want to go to BRL next?
Sure. So BRL will start off with the Dirt Street Stock Series. We were at Eldora this week. Started out as a low line track, and then gradually the line went upward to be a high line track, but you could still get it done on the bottom if you needed to. I qualified like very, very poorly. I was dead last in my heat, and then just barely pipped Ryan Seneker to make it into the feature, so I didn't have to do the consolation race. And I think I started the consi race in like I don't know 12th or something. Not great, but not terrible. And then I finished seventh just by virtue of um, ripping the lip, doing the high line, and as people went low to get a better run, I'd just kind of sneak up on their outside so they couldn't do anything. That worked out to our favor, but yeah, it was sucked too because I only started on the outside. Excuse me, once. So it was a difficult experience to try to get back up there and then pass all the people back that passed me while I was stuck on the inside. And then we did the super late models. Those are new this season. They seem pretty fun. We were at Nashville, so they were quite a handful. I think JR won. I forget where I finished, maybe like fifth or sixth or something. Not the best race, but we got wrecked pretty early on. Um, and then I missed the truck race because I left early. So I have no clue what happened to that. Don't even know who won. But yeah, then we'll move on to Saturday at Street Stock Race. I started pole. I don't know how or why because I didn't think I finished eighth last week, but I also didn't really need to care where I finished as long as I was only a position behind Joe. So I showed up on Saturday. I was like, oh, all right, got the pole, not bad. Led every lap and won the race. That was pretty cool. Had one caution in the SKs. I think I started like fifth. Um, but in practice, James was like a couple tenths faster than everyone else. So it was more a question of who was going to finish second. Um, Joe Segala almost did until like 2 laps to go. I passed Joe. And so I finished second in that race, which is pretty good. We'll take that. And then in the Grand National race, it was super fun. Um, just, saving tires. And there were a couple different wrecks. I started 12th, and it like 10 laps in or something, Lowell got turned around and I smacked into his door trying to avoid the wreck. So my car looked like shit the, the last 90 laps of the race. But yeah, I just saved my stuff and passed people when I could and tried to be methodical about it. I could run people down if I wanted to, but I really wanted to save my tires to the end. And I really felt like we were in the catbird seat at the end because I could have probably passed Jason if we had enough laps. I'm not sure I would have had anything for James, but he was fighting with Jason for a while, and I know that must have torn up his tires pretty good. So it would have been interesting to see if what we would have had for him, but we just had too many cautions at the end. Um, Especially the last one is what killed us because we could have had like a 4 or 5 lap dash to the finish, but instead we had like a lap and a half and then another caution, and that really put the nail in the coffin. But so James won that race. Pretty good win for him. Um, so
You had a
he,
good solid
he
weekend though. You were up front in
yeah,
all
yeah,
three
finished
races.
first, second, and third in those, and then spoiler alert, finished fourth at Sebring. So yesterday I had a quadruple, I guess.
And Kurt's helping me correct you on the mods. Tours, not SKs.
Ah, yes, of course, of course.
Big difference. Um, yeah, I was actually watching on the YouTubes, watching the live broadcast of the Grand National race, and A lot of hard battles. I was really surprised that Jason was able to hold on for a top three spot because of how hard he was running at the beginning. Like he worked really hard to get the lead, and then when he got the lead, he ran away with it. He looked like he was running so hard, and then he was defending Todd and successfully did that. And then once James passed him, I thought that he was just going to drop like a rock, but he actually was still just as hard to pass as he was, and and he held on for a P2 spot. So good for him. It'll be interesting to see if he can keep his momentum up through the season. He's the kind of
He's
guy
one of the
like,
hardest people to pass on the roster. You
yeah,
know, I'd put him right up there at the top.
like he does a really good job of taking advantage of when he does get to start up towards the front. He seems to be the guy who falls back least or like slowest of the guys that will start up towards the front occasionally. Um, and there's certain tracks too that he's pretty darn good at. So we'll see. Well, it'll be interesting to see what he can do now that he's going to be starting. Well, at worst seventh, I suppose, instead of starting up towards the front. And you guys will have a week off, but then you'll go to Oxford Plains, which is basically just a circle. So passing for anybody is going to be difficult. Um, so yeah, I run quite a few races there. We'll see what. I'm interested to see what the racing looks like because guys are going to have to really give and take because there's no way that you can't make a last second move. That's how all passing moves are there. So hopefully people are aware enough to give you the lane if you stick your nose in because that's kind of the only way you can pass.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people getting wrecked, but we'll have to wait and see.
Well, a lot of times what happens is like a guy will come down and he'll get sideways, but he'll kind of get pushed up and like straightened back out by the guy underneath him, so it doesn't end up being a caution. Or if they go off in the dirt, it's not always a caution. So we'll see.
See, my expectations are not high.
Hopefully you start on the bottom at least. Um,
Well, that means someone's going to have to miss from the rest of the top eight.
yep. Hey, it could happen.
Good might.
But the last thing in the iRacing discussion is the 12 hours of Sebring that we ran with Western PA iRacing. So we had two cars. Orange car was Chris Wolfson, Ben Wolfson, Tim Shinowski, and Zane Farrell. And yellow car was myself, Austin, and Matt Shinowski. And it was actually kind of interesting because orange car, because of Tim's iRating, got put into a higher split than yellow car, which usually it's the opposite. So they were in the 27th out of 37 splits, which is insane. And we were in the 28th. And yeah, 37 splits, it's crazy. So in our split, I volunteered to start the car because I feel like that's something I need to practice, get better at, and be more comfortable with. And I've started the races like league races with Chris and stuff, with endurance stuff. So I feel like now's the time to try it. So I qualified the car, qualified as 14th out of it was like 26 cars in our class in the LMP2. And we had LMP2s and GTEs. There's only two classes instead of three. But made our way up into the top 10 or so. Eventually, I don't remember. The beginning of the race is kind of a blur to me because I don't really. Progress was kind of slow. I remember that, but it was relatively clean, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't think we had any X's for a while. The only X's we got were like a 1X here or there for avoiding wrecks. And that was pretty much it.
Yeah, so I think we eventually got to the top 10. But once we were kind of in the top 10, the middle of the race, I think all three of us kind of made some mistakes. And it mainly came from the GTE traffic was just it was terrible.
Dense.
I mean
And I mean that in two ways.
yeah, I ended up taking out at least two different GTE cars just because they they turned down like I wasn't even like there, and like the closing rate was insane too. In some of these corners, like in turn one. Um, and I wasn't driving their cars, so I don't know how slow they needed to be, but it just felt like they were way, way slower than they should have been. Because some of the guys I would catch and be just fine, but then these other guys I would catch and I would be right up on top of them and I didn't even like realize it. So turn one, I ended up spinning and it spun me too. I spun a guy out, and then in one of the hairpins, I uh, I got like on the corner exit, the guy just like went way wide and like slowed down, and I was just on top of him, and I ended up spinning him around. We got like hooked together, and he wanted to hit me again and give me another 2x because he was mad at me and wouldn't let me go. We were like hooked together, so that was kind of stupid. So at the
Yeah,
end,
he was cussing us out pretty good over the radio.
yeah, I'm glad I couldn't hear his dense self, but uh, we ended up finishing with like 43x, and 50x is a drive-through penalty, so we were really conscious about that. But we did not get any X's in the last like few hours. Um, so Austin, you got your stints out of the way relatively early so that you could go do BRL. So you were done like in the midpoint of the race, or like second, third or so. And then Matt and I just kind of traded back and forth the last few stints. And it was weird because like we're kind of in our own space, and but we were flip flopping between like I mean it would be like seventh all the way up to like fourth. But after like every pit cycle would reset, we were finding that we were ahead of where we were. You know, we were like always eighth at the beginning of the cycle, then we were always seventh, and we were sixth, and then now at the end we're battling like for fifth with a potential for fourth. And then one of the guys that was behind us actually had a problem at the end. Like Matt thought it was actually like a hardware failure because the car like went straight and then like went straight again and then they quit. Like maybe a wheel failure or something. Um, so then there was one other team that we were battling with to try to grab fourth place, and we were gonna have to pit like a short pit stop at the end with me in the car. I was finishing, and while Matt was in the car, he had one last spin going onto the backstretch, and it gave us up. It gave up like 10 to 20 seconds. So we were kind of behind the eight ball a little bit, or at least we thought. But then I got in the car. I was full attack mode, and then we pitted, and um, we ended up. Matt perfectly judged our fuel strategy. We ended up actually having a little bit extra fuel, but we spent half as much time in the pits as the team that we were fighting with, and that was the difference. We ended up coming out like I don't know what was it, like 3 to 6 seconds somewhere in there in front of them, and then I just ran away from them at the end, and we had plenty of fuel, so I just kept going, and we ended up finishing fourth, which in my time is the best effort that I've had at Sebring in the 3 years or so I've done it now. So I was extremely happy because I don't like Sebring. I'm not very good there, in my opinion. I don't feel that comfortable there. But that day was a stepping stone because we all did a good job. So what was your experience and reaction through the race?
It was fun. It was just surprising how slow some of the GTE cars were, and some of them like just weren't looking in their mirror to figure out what the closing rate was or where we were. And it like I spun out two of them. There was one where some Ferrari fighting in like 16th place. I don't know what he was doing. He blew a corner before the backstretch into sunset. So he blew a corner and then he blew the other corner, hit me off the track, gave me a 4x, and then as I was going straight down the backstretch on the corner exit, Brennan Poole was also on our race, by the way. I don't know if you said that, Kane, but Brennan Poole was on our race. The guy used to drive the number 48 car for Chip Ganassi Racing. Um, in the Xfinity series, and then last year, you guys might know he drove the 15 car, had like a mosquito on the hood. It was yellow. He's not the fastest, but not the slowest. It was kind of cool for him to be in our split. His teammate come out and just tore the shit out of us, put me in the grass, gave us another 4x. So that was like an 8x in the span of like a minute.
Yeah,
All
I
just
was.
because some Ferrari couldn't get his shit together. And I was gonna pit, like I was literally one lap away from pitting, and this shit happened. So that really sucked.
Yeah, I was. Like that Ferrari like moved one way, like he got on the curbs and then moved right back across, clipped you, spun you way off into the um like runoff. And Matt actually went back and looked at this. When you were coming back onto the track, from your cockpit view, you could not see that car coming, but from their point of view, cockpit, they could see you on the other side. So there's not really a reason why they
They
couldn't have.
definitely could have slowed down. The same thing happened to me. I saw a car there, and I slowed down to make sure I wouldn't run wide into the runoff there, where that car was going to be.
Yep. And I mean, they could have just kind of give up a little speed on exit and just kind of move over, give you a little lane. Because you didn't. It's not like when you come back on the track, you didn't like go all the way across the track. You came on like on the left side and stayed there. So
Yeah, he
yeah,
he cussed us out. I mean, he cussed Matt out. I assume there's a glitch right now where iRacing doesn't show the entire team when one person gets messaged, but he was cussing us out pretty hard.
yeah, that was that Ryan Daly guy that basically took them out of contention. And in the beginning parts of the race, I was actually like following behind Brennan Poole, racing with him a little bit. That was pretty fun, and I was gonna tweet at him, but I don't know if I'm gonna do that now because he probably hates us. So
Or at least Ryan hates me and Matt.
yes.
But yeah,
Um,
it was pretty fun. I mean, we had really good speed because I mean, whenever we went out there, you were catching the guys ahead of you, and I was catching the guys ahead of me. We put on some pretty good moves to pass different people. I had run down Ryan and passed him, ran him down by like 6 seconds, and then I gapped him by at least eight or something. Well, I mean, I was stationary and spun out for a long time, and then that's when he finally hit us. So we had gapped him by a lot.
yeah, our average lap time as a team was actually over a tenth and a half better than the winning team. So like there were times, plenty of times where we were actually faster than the leaders. It's just, we kind of shot ourselves in the foot with some different things, and then we had like, mainly that the problems with the traffic. We just could not avoid getting contact. Although at least the damage was always being repaired, um, which was nice. So like we didn't really have to sit in the pits any extra time for anything, and we'd have a fast car when we pitted too. So that kept us in the game. But yeah, like just like some spins and stuff like that kind of took us away. But I mean, the leaders like for most of the race were putting on just an absolutely crazy pace. Um, First and second, like they were really really good. We were around second place, like that car at the beginning. I remember racing with them, but to only finish one lap down though, P4. I mean, it's a really really good result. I just hope we get some better GTE traffic next time because that was pretty terrible. Probably the worst GTE traffic I can remember. Now, granted that track's a lot more claustrophobic than Daytona. It's a lot harder to make passes, but man, those I don't know. And I'm sure the GTEs are probably thinking like, wow, those are like the worst prototypes I've seen ever. It's kind of a two-sided argument there, but uh, I don't know. Just the standards did not seem high. There was a very big lack of consistency. Some guys I'd catch would do one thing, other guys would do something else. So our next endurance series race that we may actually try, there's a series called the Craventix Endurance Series, and they're going to run 12-hour races with GT3 and GT4 and touring cars. We're not sure which car we want to run, but we may run some of that. Matt wants to run it, and I might join him. and the next one, the first one's actually the next weekend, and can't remember where it was at. Do you remember where that was at?
Uh,
Ah, yes, Spa. Yeah, so it's only 4 races: April 3rd, June 26th, August 28th, and October 23rd. So they're spread out. First one's Spa. I haven't done an endurance race at Spa before. I have run there, but well, actually, I ran an endurance race with Chris there. It was a 2 or 3 hour one, but that was it. So that would be kind of cool. Might run that. Anyways, want to move on to the video game chat. Have any
yep.
interesting updates?
I mean, just playing like Grand Theft Auto 5 and in Siege with the lads from school. That's pretty much it. I want to get around to finishing off my F1 season, because we just have Yas Marina left. Maybe this week, might. We'll see.
Is there a close points battle?
No, no, no. I mean, there might be, but I locked up a championship in Mexico.
Wow.
I'm just that good.
Now in GTA 5, do you guys do anything specific? Is it always the same kind of thing you're doing, like heists or
I
races
mean,
or
yeah, pretty much every time we just we do some heists. We might run some like cocaine or meth or whatever. Sometimes we do the vehicle flipping stuff, but then every time we always end playing golf.
Yeah, I kind of wish I had like some friends to play that. We don't really. I've had friends that go kind of in and out of it, but nobody really seems to stay with it. So like I've played a little bit online, but then haven't really like I would like to actually like establish myself where I actually like get a decent amount of money without cheating because I know plenty of people do that at least on PC. Um, and like buy houses, cars, and stuff because they're always adding to it. But I don't know. I seem to lack commitment when it comes to that game.
Yeah, you need to have good friends, and it's like you need four or three other friends to do all the heists. Otherwise, it just becomes impossible because you're doing it with like randos and like people from not the same country as you, and the communication isn't always there. And there's a couple different ways you can do all the heist stuff, so it just depends. But it's a good time.
Yeah, I think I've done occasionally some heists with randoms, and it's kind of annoying. Kind of annoying because like they don't know what you're doing, and most of the time they have different thought process than you, so it kind of screws with things. Anyways, this week I actually haven't been playing like any Xbox, just watching YouTube and stuff like that. But this week I did play a little bit of Rocket League with Brody and Zane. Zane's been wanting to have another Rocket League session because it's quite a fun time when we play 3v3s with them. But we played and to be honest, didn't do very well. uh, we won some games. I feel like we lost the majority. We did end up doing one of the 3v3 tournaments, and we lost right away, which is expected. But we always get put into the second chance tournament, and but then we lost in that too in a pretty close match. So, but it was fun, always is. I know we'll probably play that again. Might end up playing today if we don't have any racing going on. We'll see. But that moves me on to the rant and review for this week. And Austin, I don't know, you might have a little bit of say in this too, but it's just something I came up with, which is just the kind of the lack of preparation for the Bristol dirt race. And I was kind of had this thought um, a while back actually, because I'm not sure exactly how much testing they did for cup cars there. Um, but I don't think it would have been enough
I
even if they
think
did test.
none. Like I think Friday was the first time they got out there.
I thought too. Unless they did like a behind closed doors kind of thing, um but yeah, like the as far not just like with the whole rain thing because that's kind of an outside factor, but like with the tire wear, for example, and the fact that like how quickly the moisture is coming out of the track and like how badly the track's getting torn up. Um, these are things that were not really ever tested, and now we could we're kind of on the verge of having like a tire fiasco because these cup cars are just not keeping the rear tires on them, and they've done something. They've changed the competition. They've added competition cautions every 50 laps, and they've changed the stages to accommodate that. And then they've given every team a set of tires extra. So they're trying their best to prevent it from happening, but this is all kind of last minute band-aid stuff. Hopefully they can actually, change things for next year. I totally applaud NASCAR for like trying new things, trying new events on the schedule, but I know with COVID it kind of made things harder to test and prepare. But with a track this weird for Cup cars, there needs to be some good preparation and a lot of research done, or else the event could be a disaster. So the event's already kind of turning into a disaster just because of the weather, but that's not really NASCAR's fault. But um, hopefully, when we do have this race, that we're able to actually have a good race. I
It's
don't know.
interesting too. Someone I saw on Facebook commented that it has rained in like either 8 of the last 16 or 6 of the last 8 Bristol spring races or something. Just an insane amount. Um, and then but last weekend though, it was perfect. Like it was perfect for some dirt track racing. 'Cause we watched the Dirt Nationals online, and they were having a great time.
Yeah, I do remember rain being a problem with it, and even snow being a problem occasionally in the spring race. But they obviously don't want to take away the Bristol night race in the time that it is, like later in the
No,
year.
no, leave
So
leave that alone.
yeah,
It'd just be cool if we could get a big old roof for Bristol.
that would be cool, have a dome. But then like another thing too is like what do you do about dust and stuff like that? Because they were saying like, oh, the wind has been able to carry dust out decently, although the visibility was kind of awful even when it was dry, at least on TV. Um, but yeah, with the dome, I'm not sure how that would work as far as like ventilation and stuff like that. Um, you got a place like the Chili Bowl, but that's a smaller venue, and I would assume that the cars that are running on it probably produce less dust, anyways, and they probably do a better job at taking care of the surface. But I don't know what there could be to help put more moisture in the track without making it mud to keep it to last longer. I don't know, but um, one thing I noticed too is that like on there would be guys running the top line, but not as much as like what we were running on iRacing. iRacing, the top line was the line to run for like the first 40 laps, and then the bottom would come in. Um, but people were really wearing out the bottom in the real cars. And I didn't get a chance to watch the truck practice. Did you watch any of that at all? Because the trucks, um, they were the first ones to get onto the surface, so they were able to have a fresher track than the Cup cars. I think we've lost Austin.
What? Sorry, Sergio Perez is stopped on the track.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I decided to pull it up. I was like, oh, somebody died.
So you are watching the F1 race?
Yeah, I just now turned it on to see him stopped at the edge of the track.
Hmm. I was wondering if you had watched any of the truck practice.
I watched a bit of the truck practice, and then I watched the entirety of the Cup practice, the second one. And I mean, they were getting it done. It was interesting to see though, like the difference that they had in tire wear. Because you'd look at their tires, the right rear especially, and it'd be like slick, you know. But so yeah, so I don't know. So I'm with you on that. I don't know. Maybe Goodyear could have brought in a harder compounded tire, but hard to say.
Yeah, James says Perez is dead on the formation lap.
Yep. Yeah, it looked like he got going again just before. Um, but we'll see. Hopefully he does well.
Yeah, so will they give him his spot back?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Hmm, interesting.
They did have to abandon their start, so they have to do another formation lap.
Well, because of him. Good job.
Pretty much. Yep.
Um, anyways, since I got your attention again, You can do the getting around to it modeling section.
Yeah. So doing Dale Senior's Lumina. Had another Lumina kit out in the garage. It was Ricky Rudd, and I'm not a big Ricky Rudd fan. Like, and if I'm gonna do a Tide car, it's gonna have to be Darrell Waltrip's 17 Tide car, probably from '89, because he won, I think, Daytona that year. But yeah, I mean, just the Aero Coupe, the Monte Aero Coupe. Um, so yeah, I got it all painted except for the body. Um, shaping up nicely though. And then the big getting around to a project though, the shelf above my TV for my models, still getting around to that. But got all the materials here,
Oh, nice,
like
nice.
boards for the shelves.
I do have something kind of getting around to it. Last year, or well, 2019, I started a thing where I wanted to go to like a different racetrack every year. And like 2019, I'd planned a trip to Michigan International Speedway with some friends, and we did that, and that was a whole lot of fun. And then we also went to Berlin Raceway for the Battle at Berlin. Because those are in state for me. So we went to those. And then 2020, I actually had bought tickets to go to Eldora for the truck race, which is in Ohio. And then that obviously got canceled. So then had to get a refund. So that didn't happen. So now 2020. So I didn't have any like big race to go to last year. So 2021, I was kind of thinking of doing a vacation, but not necessarily a spectator event, just because things are still kind of weird with that kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't know about like hotel availability um, or like ticket availability, things like that, and spectator restrictions. So I wanted to plan some vacation. So I haven't really set anything in stone yet, but I kind of started planning a vacation to Wisconsin to go visit our buddy Brian, who does the Rusty's Retro races. And yeah, I might take the ferry since I'm in West Michigan. I can take the ferry over to Wisconsin, hang out there for a while, and I could either drive back or take the ferry back. But we just started kind of planning some things there and thinking of things that we can do while I hang out there and stay with Brian for a while. So that would be fun. But spring is kind of here, so I might start doing some things around the house, clean up and whatnot. But other than that, that's about it. So have they gone green in the F1 race now?
Yep, they just went green, only for there to be a safety car. And just got called just now. That one of the Haas, the Mazepin Haas, spun out like just after turn two, and he hit the wall pretty good. But
Fun,
it's
funny,
okay though, he said.
funny that you said that because you said Mazepin spun out a bunch like in practice and qualifying and stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, he might have actually gotten a hit this time, but we'll see.
Yep. James says poor Haas. LOL.
Yep.
Anyways, yeah, that's it. You got anything else to add?
No, that's all I had.
Yeah, it was a short episode this week, but and we will be taking next week off, Easter weekend. There's not gonna be a whole lot of racing going on, but that'll make the next week an even bigger show because if Matt and I do run that endurance race, so I'll have that to talk about. We'll have Rusty's retro races. We might have two races of his to talk about. Um, or no, we will have just one. Yeah, because he's going to take this week off and he's going to do it next week, he told me. So we'll have that. And next week we will have NIS. We won't have NEP. But yeah, we'll have plenty to
We
talk
have
about.
Road to Pro though.
We will not have Road to Pro, though.
Well, not next week, but the week after, isn't it?
Yes. Oh, yeah, so yeah, you
So
are
we'll be
right.
able to talk about it.
Yes. And then we will, eventually we will have the Bristol Dirt to talk about for that week. And then we'll have on the real side, and then F1 reviews, and we'll be able to preview the next set of races for the real racing as well. So it'll be a really full show in 2 weeks. But short one this week. So again, we'll be back in 2 weeks. Everybody enjoy your holiday when it gets here, and have a good rest of the weekend. And we'll talk to you guys later. And Godspeed.